Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining this session. Delighted to welcome Helen Clayton from the charity Sported, which is a charity I'm familiar with. Done some volunteer work for them. Fantastic charity supporting organisations, grassroots sports organisations in lots of ways up and down the country. And Helen will just sort of give an overview of what the charity does and how clubs can benefit from the support on offer. So, Helen, over to you.
Great. Brilliant. I'm just going to share my screen. You zoom for ages. There we go. Fab, can you see that? Confirm?
Yes.
Great.
Yeah, got it.
Okay, Fab. I'm going to leave my slides on the right-hand side because I've had one of those running around days today, so it's going to help me remember what actually comes next. So Sported, as Chris explained, we're a UK-wide charity. My role within Sported is partnerships manager. So I look after our partnerships with NGBs, with active partnerships, and with some of our corporate partnerships as well. So as I come on to talk a bit more about the services we offer, you'll see where all of that fits together. We're a team of about 53, and the majority of that team is out and about in the field. So we have 8 regions within England, and we also cover Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. So we're fairly well spread. We're a charity that was set up by Sir Keith Mills, and originally he was heavily involved, as you know, may know, in 2012, in our proposal for 2012 and the success we had there. And his main aim was the reason we can put so many athletes forward for the Olympics is that we have a massive base of the pyramid, which is often run by volunteers and non-paid staff and mad possessed individuals who just want young people to get involved in sport and physical activity and just, enhance their communities. He sold a business, put his money where his mouth was, and put all that money into a grant distribution, which is what we were set up as originally. We then realised in the process of distributing all this funding, which was great for our groups, that actually lots of our groups couldn't cope with an influx of funding. They didn't have the right infrastructure, the right governance, the right financial processes. So we've morphed away originally from being a grant funder to more around supporting the structures and organisations that deliver those sports and physical activities. So we're sport agnostic. We don't care. There's about 90 sports that are covered throughout our network. And what we do is we help groups with their engine. So all of the stuff that makes that group function better and continue to be sustainable, tap into different programs, tap into funding, broaden their reach, look at inclusion, all of those types of things. So that's what we do. We're a network of about 5,000 clubs and groups. They're not necessarily sports groups. They can be community groups as well. So say, for example, Rochdale Women's Association run a girls' five-a-side programme originally, and we went in there to help them with their governance and their structures. They've increased the amount of physical activity they do with their communities, but their organisation has become much stronger. That's allowed them to set up contracts with councils and all sorts of other bits and pieces that they needed and when they needed it. Next is a little infographic of where we are. So you can see we tend to focus around the urban areas because that's where groups tend to be. But we're doing quite a lot of work at the moment on rurality. So making sure that those groups that are in rural communities feel connected and feel supported. That was one of the joys of COVID, actually. Our groups that didn't feel as connected actually became more connected because everyone was much used to talking on this square box rather than meeting in a room face to face. So it's actually opened up a little bit more of our original aim of being a much broader network. You can see that many of our groups have a social outcome. So it's not all about the sport and the physical activity. It's about what else they deliver in their communities. And our original focus as an organisation has been on young people, but that's now broadened to adults as well. So there's no restrictions on what types of groups and organisations join our network and the support we can offer them. So what is our network? Well, it's completely free for a start. You just fill a form in and then you'll get a phone call and somebody will contact you to say, right, what do you need? How can we get it to you? Is it accessing a resource on our hub? So looking at how-to guide, is it actually sitting down with somebody and having a conversation about a plan or a guideline or an issue you're having with the council or a contract or a facility transfer, whatever it is. We've got the skills within our field teams and our massive team of volunteers to be able to help with that. As I mentioned, we're based in the UK and you've got to be delivering physical activity. So as fencing groups, you're naturally going to be doing that. So that's a big tick. You're in. So what can we support you with? I've refreshed these slides today, and actually we just keep adding to them. And I realized that I could just keep throwing stuff at you as to what we need. So it is quite long, but it's just so you've got an awareness. And when we circulate these slides later, you can have a good read through. So we can basically, the long and short of it, we can basically help organisations with whatever they need. And if we can't help them, we can find somebody who can. So if it's around the fencing bit, we'll obviously go back to the NGB. But if it's around anything else that a field team member from British Fencing can't quite manage or doesn't have the skills to do, we can actually help you with it. So there's just a couple of examples there in terms of business planning. And when we say business planning, that's your organisational planning. It can be reviewing something you've already got or putting something in place that allows you to look longer term around your sustainability. So underneath that can sit a finance plan, a fundraising strategy. And that sounds really glam, but it's basically like, we don't want to run out of money in 3 years. What do we do now to enable that to happen? How can we diversify our income? What grants and funds are out there for us to apply to? Can we work with others to save resources? So basically trying to help you get sound financial processes and procedures in your organisation, and supporting the people who've been doing it within your organisations for ages and often feel like, oh my God, this is so much to do. I'm not very good with spreadsheets. I don't get accounting. Or maybe I do get accounting, but I'd love somebody else to have a look at this. So we can support different groups according to what levels they're at, whether they're starting out or whether they're really well established. And those committee members that deal with those individual bits of that running, if you like. So fundraising is one of our big asks. If we spoke to any of our regional managers, what's our service that's asked for most? It's around fundraising. We do a bespoke funding search provision. We do a regular monthly funding bulletin, and that's regionalised as well as a national one. We also can support you when you've written a grant and a bid to say, is this right? Does this sound right? We can help you write it in the first place. So, we can help you source a grant, write it with you, and then hopefully get it in and get it done. We don't do it for you. That's not the service we offer. We do it with you, so that learning and that education stays within your organisation and makes you much better in terms of next time you apply, you've got a bit more confidence, and that learning stays within that organisation. We can help you with legal structures and governance. So whether you've been set up a while, you're thinking of changing your structure, or just checking the processes and policies and procedures that you've got in place, we can do all of that with you and make sure that you're fit for purpose, that your articles say what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, and that everybody within your committee is aware of that as well. And that's always really handy for when it comes to applying for grants, making sure that all of those policies and procedures are bang on. So that's not going to hold you back when it comes to applying for funding for what you deliver, not how you're set up. Marketing and PR, social media, websites, we've got help available for all of that. And again, that's something that's coming more and more to the fore, is how do I use this social media? No idea. How can I reach different audiences? How can I increase participation? What can we do to make us as a club more visible so we can attract more members, or, help our funders understand better what we do? We can also help with impact practice. So the dull bit that needs to be done a lot of the time to demonstrate how effective you are as an organisation, not just in terms of taking a register, but understanding what a funder would want to see in terms of previous work that you've done. It also allows you to change your processes and procedures to make sure that what you're doing is efficient and works well. And we have several tools and skilled volunteers to help with that as well. So you'll have heard me mention our skilled volunteers, of which Chris is one. And we have a team of about 350, I think it is at the moment, volunteers who are from a business background. So they're not volunteers who'll go in on a Thursday night and help you with sessions. They're volunteers who will use their business skills to help your organisation. So we're working currently with Knight Frank, and they've got loads of employees, obviously, who deal with facilities and leases and asset transfers. So we're using them as a pot to help us service our groups and make sure that they're receiving the help they need with professional skills and knowledge. We don't tell groups what to do. We can provide you with advice and guidance, and then you and your committee can make those decisions. because obviously it's down to you, but we can give you all the information that allows you to make those really informed decisions. And those volunteer placements aren't some one-off meetings. So if there's an issue like an asset transfer, that volunteer will be with you from start to finish. And if they don't have the skills, they'll refer you on to others, and the placements can go up to 12, 18 months, depending on how much time you actually need. Again, on the understanding that it's done with you and your committee. It's not the volunteer who just goes off and gets that sorted for you. So, sorry, skip forward, not back. So how we do it, we give you a name contact, which is our regional manager, and they will work with you to identify volunteers and your challenges and your issues. You've got the opportunity as well to come on board with some of our projects. So we do lots of projects around inclusion, women and girls, and being part of the network allows you to be contacted around that and see if it's worthwhile for you as an organisation. So if, for example, we're doing a package on social media, we've done some work with Vodafone recently about data coverage and websites and access to IT. So groups who were within our network had access to that, and we put a cohort together and we ran a project with them. We've also got the opportunity for you guys to access grant programmes. So one that might be pertinent at the moment, we're just about to launch a grant program that's for clubs that only work with adults. So there's grants for £1,000 available for those types of clubs. We're also running some grant programs with Barclays, Flutter, Ring, the doorbell people, and Knight Frank. So there's loads of different grants programs that are out there as well. We deliver webinars and workshops. Again, across a wide range of issues. Hopefully they're user-friendly, really chatty people who know what they're talking about, to make sure that they're relevant, giving loads of time for Q&As at the end, and also the ability to come back and say, I didn't quite get that. Can you explain it, or can you support me a little bit more on ABC, whatever it is. We have an online platform, as most people do, with resources. But again, I think more than the resources, the one-to-one support that can explain those resources and bring them to life and make sure that you get the most out of them. As I mentioned earlier, we do a monthly funding bulletin, and that's accompanied by a newsletter as well, telling you what's going on in the sector, any challenges or issues or anything that it's worth being aware of that's coming down the line. And they're also regionalised as well, so it just makes it a bit more pertinent for you and the audiences that you're serving. We can also give legal and insurance advice. God, this is a right old sales pitch, isn't it? And we've got several different organisations we use to do that pro bono. So if there's a challenge that's often expensive for groups to find support around, we can often find support around that's free or at a greatly reduced cost because of the connections we have with legal companies. And we also have platforms and different offers to partners and programs that might well be useful around kit and equipment and stuff that you might need to run your organisation, and platforms for tracking membership, looking for sponsorship, all of those types of things. So anything that can save you money that can then be ploughed back into delivering to your people, the better. And there's more that we do as well. So we do a leadership coaching program for group leaders who are often quite isolated. We know you're often quite isolated in what you're doing because you're basically head of recruitment, head of HR, head of finance, all of that stuff, and dealing with different people, whether they're volunteers or parents or external agencies. So we can offer one-to-one leadership coaching to help you just feel a little bit more supported around all of those things that are in there, and making sure that your life doesn't become the fencing club and actually you maintain your love of fencing rather than it just being, if I go, this club falls. And when you get the slides through, there's a link there to find out a little bit more about that. But that's delivered through our professional volunteers who are often professional coaches, charging vast amounts of money, but that's a free service for groups within our network. And this is not probably relevant for anyone who's going to access this, but might be useful for your field team, Chris. We do a startup program. So groups that are intending to start up or that have started as a social type activity or as part of one of your programs, we do a startup program which makes sure that those foundations that organizations start off on are really strong, and then they can build on that, increasing participation, all those sorts of things. Saves groups coming backwards a lot of the time to go forwards, making sure their structures are right. So just to bring it to life a bit, what I've done is I've looked at one of our groups, and this is slightly out of date, but you can see that because we're the type of organisation that doesn't just go, we see you once, goodbye, off you go. We've got groups who dip in and out of our support at various points along their trials and tribulations of running groups. So you can see from this is a football group, and they've come to us for support around their governance, how they were set up, help writing those initial bids, identifying different types of funding bids, getting some training around mental health for their staff, and then passing it on to their young people. Part of some of our programs around P&G, so some of the goodie bags that P&G did around Keep a Playing, which was sanitary products and other bits and pieces, and then also accessing some of our Barclays grants. They also became involved in some of our Go London delivery, which was around governance and finance and marketing and all of those sorts of things. That was a package of delivery. And then they're also introduced to other organisations as well. So some of our organisations that we work with access us quite frequently for various different things. Some of our organisations come to us with Hail Marys. We've been kicked out of our facility. We've lost all of our coaches. Our boiler's blown up. We're flooded. All of those types of things. And actually, we're there when groups need us. So you don't need to engage with us. Open a funding letter, respond to a regional manager who will be in touch occasionally. But it's not about being nagged. We won't nag you. We'll give you support where and when you need it in a format that suits you and your organisation. So this next bit I'm going to go on to is how, if you don't know what you need, but you know you want to do stuff with your organisation, we have a tool that allows us to help formulate those ideas and move that conversation on. We call it our capacity measurement tool, not very catchy, but internally we call it our game plan, because it gives us a game plan to allow us to work with organisations. So they fill in a survey, really quick 45-minute survey, or we can get a volunteer to do that with you, to talk you through the questions, make sure you understand them, understand the context of them. And it looks at different chunks of your organisation and what you have and what you might need and what your perception of is where you are as an organisation. There's probably about 4 questions per section, per bit of, so there's 4, 8, 12, 16 per bit of cheese, if you like. And this really then allows us to understand better and formulate what you need. But rather than leave it to chance and the opinion of a regional manager, there's a really funky algorithm that sits behind it, and it throws out what we call the scorecard, which is what you can see now. And this really allows us to go, okay, so you think it's, you think it's your finances that are an issue, but actually it's because your governance and structure isn't set up properly or needs support that is hindering what you're going to do around your finances. Like the fact that your governance isn't clear means that your reserves policy is a bit out there, that you haven't got a fundraising strategy. So it allows us to explain with you how it all fits together and what we think is a priority for you to work on. And if you turn around and go, I'm not interested in doing that, I've got a limited amount of time and need to do that now, that's what we'll support you with. But what we're really keen to do is make sure that that foundation isn't just plasters over things. It's actually becomes really strong and really, really sustainable over a longer period of time, and also reduces the pressure on what is often a very small committee running your clubs. So this is a typical scorecard for lots of our groups. They're really embedded in the community. They know who they serve. They know why they serve them. And some of the quirks that have been thrown up with our NGB work has been, sometimes that's actually been flipped, that groups aren't embedded in their community. They don't know who they serve. They don't know where their next target audience is. They don't necessarily, and they may well have brilliant human resources, but actually in terms of getting those extra bodies in to do the sessions, to apply, to up your participation rates, to make sure if you're interested in inclusion, you know where to go to find those audiences. So it's completely unique to every group. And as I mentioned, it allows us to formulate ideas and a plan with you about what you actually need to do. We can also review that. So at the end of a support, 3, 6, 12 months afterwards, we can redo the game plan. It's called a timeout. And it allows us then to see where you've come on and where you've moved. Another quirk we've found with the game plan is once we've worked on a particular chunk, if you like, with an organisation, they're then thinking, The original questions I answered on the game plan, I'd like to quite shift that, because I thought that was all right, but actually seeing how this lot works, I know that's not, and that's what we need to move on to next. So sometimes that works as a thing to measure. Sometimes it's just the organisation who are better financed, a bit more comfortable, have a 2-year plan, have increased their participation, whatever it is. So that's useful for us as an organisation, but sometimes it's the club itself is just like, well, we know it's better because our books are better. We've got more people sat on our committee. We're not scrambling every Thursday to try and find coaches to fill that under 12 session or whatever it is. So that is a massive speedy tour of what we do and how we do it. But we've got on the end of the slide here, you'll find there's a link that takes you straight through to an application form that's really simple. And as I mentioned, you'll get a phone call, and if you've got any questions, they'll be able to answer it. You don't have to sign up. You can have a think about it. You can go to the website and have a look. But it's just trying to help as many different organisations as possible and working with NGBs to allow them to maximise their resources as well.